Mark Rogers, TV, talking some Miami football. Of course, we bring in Cam Underwood from State of the U to help us out. Cam, how you doing today?
Feel good. You know, it's a nice, relaxing Sunday afternoon as we're recording this here in sunny South Florida. So I think it's in the mid-80s with partly cloudy skies. So life is pretty good around here.
Well, for one of the few times when you mention the weather, I can match you. So it feels good. So it should be good just about anywhere across America at this point, being the first week of July. So I was checking out SI.com. They have named their top 100 football players in college football for 2017. So, you know, it's a projection process. You look at 2016, you project if guys are getting better, possibly not on that trajectory, and you forecast. So I see they've got 21 players from the ACC in their top 100, 6 from your rival Florida State, 1 from the U. I expected more. I expected to have this conversation and say, oh, this guy's 32, this guy's 70, this guy's 81. Do you think they got it right? One guy, Amon Richards at 56. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's shocking to me, just as it's shocking to you. Miami does have very good talent on the team in a variety of areas. And no, we've not been the winning program that we would have aspired to and have been in the past recently, but to only have one player in the top 100, I think that's just ridiculous to me. You have Mark Walton, who's the best running back in the ACC. You know, he's coming off a 1,200-yard season, 14 touchdowns, you know, give or take. A dynamic pass catcher out of the backfield as well. I think he played on all the special teams. So you're talking kick return, kick cover, punt return, punt cover. You know, so he's playing, you know, all over the place, dynamic player. So I think that he should have had a spot there in the top 100. Not saying that, you know, I know that Walton's only 5'9" and he doesn't have that sixth gear in the open field. He only gets, you know, 4.5 or 5 gears. So you can get caught by, you know, pursuing players. But, you know, to have Walton not be in there, I think that's crazy. RJ McIntosh and or Kendrick Norton, the starting defensive tackles, you know, you're hard-pressed to find many pairs of starting tackles that are better than those guys. Are there better starting tackle pairs? Sure, but there's not more than 4 or 5 maybe. So, you know, maybe if you're looking at it from that way where you're saying, well, Cam, you know, you mentioned both of those guys and they're better as a group than individually, and that's why they're not in the top 100. Well, okay, I'll give you, you know, that counterpoint to my original point. But, you know, both those guys are very high talents. They could both go in the top 2 rounds of the NFL draft in 2018 if the 2017 season goes well. So not having one of those guys in the top 100 is shocking to me as well. The freshman linebackers, now sophomores, that'd be Zach McLeod, Mike Pinkney, and Shaq Quarterman. You know, Shaq Quarterman was a freshman All-American. Stands to reason that if he was one of the top 12 freshmen, 22 freshmen coming back from a year ago, that you would project him in the top 100 players, you know, overall returning. So maybe that's a little crazy that Shaq Quarterman wasn't somewhere in the top 100. You know, but outside of that, I don't think that there's really too many guys that you miss. You really lose everybody in the defensive secondary. Like I said, all 3 linebackers are going to be there. You know, Joe Jackson, I think he was a freshman All-American as well. So you make the same case for him as Shaq Quarterman for maybe having a spot in that top 100, you know, maybe somewhere in the 80s or 90s, just because, you know, defensive line is a loaded position. But yeah, to only have one guy in the SI top 100, I think is that's more emblematic of Miami's trajectory recently as a program than those players' individual talents and abilities. So, you know, maybe when we revisit this at the end of the year and we see, you know, all ACC and all American honors, you know, first team, second team, third team, things like that, I think those guys are going to get more credit then than they are now. And I think it stands to reason because, like I said, Miami finally won a bowl game for the first time in 10 years last year. Still have not had a 10-win season in, I don't remember the last time, maybe it was 2004-ish. So, you know, more than a decade for a double-digit win season. So when you have a program like that, you're not necessarily going to get the wide notoriety outside of, you know, the local people who cover and follow this team, such as myself and, you know, beat writers and other bloggers and things like that. So, yeah, there's only Amon Richards. And, I mean, freshman All-American, first team, obviously right there, almost 1,000 yards, broke Michael Irvin's freshman receiving record last season. Really looking for great things from him, regardless of who the quarterback is going to be. But, yeah, I would have expected there to be a more Hurricanes represented on that Sports Illustrated Top 100 list. But that should just give us the impetus and incentive to do well this season so we get our just due, or those players get their just due after the season.
So, Cam, there was a Cam on the top 100, and the reason I bring him up, Cam Akers at number 99, is he hasn't played a down of college football. He, of course, is the stud recruit at Florida State, but he vaults in the top 100 based on projections and talent and supporting cast, I'm sure, at a program that's elite in college football. I also did the quick scan to count running backs. You mentioned a whole bunch of different players at different positions, but I couldn't do all the math in my head. But I thought I'd take the Mark Walton topic. 12 running backs in the top 100, so they don't have Walton in the top 12 at that position is what that plays out to be.
I mean, like, those are two different conversations. First of all, Mark Walton not being a top 12 running back in college, like, I could see that if you take all the running backs in college right now and you say, if you even, regardless of what year they are, looking towards the NFL, these are my top 20, and you have 20 or 25 guys more coveted as an NFL projected talent than Mark Walton, I could potentially see that. But as college football running backs in the year of our Lord 2017, 12 within Mark, I just don't see it. And I went to the U, I cover the U, I write about it. I'm wearing, our logo shirt and everything. Maybe it's my orange and green glasses that are not allowing me to see it, but I watch a lot of college football and a lot of teams from all over the place. I know that there's a lot of great running backs, but man, I just don't agree with that. And furthermore, again, great first name, however, has not played a down in college yet. And you're going to say that he's better right now than Mark Walton, who has 2 years, was a starter last year in a Power 5 conference, over 1,200 or 1,200 yards, 14 touchdowns, whatever it is, last season. Starting running back on a team that won 9 games, out there, blitz pickup, pass protection, receiving out of the backfield, running, returning, all those things. And you take a freshman kid, and Akers is good. Akers is 5'11", 215 pounds. He's jacked, he's built, he's fast, he's quick, all of those things. But he's also an unknown because he's never done it at the collegiate level. And the hype surrounding Cam Akers boggles my mind because he played single wing quarterback in high school. So he threw the ball and everything, but it was basically, they're running Wildcat the entire time. So he does need to, run as a running back and do the whole, get the ball and not fumble it and do all those kind of things. Okay, cool. So there's that. You need, to protect the quarterback and, pick up blitzes and catch the ball in the backfield. And okay, there's that. But the talk around him it's just so voluminous. I mean, it's just, and maybe it's for virtue of the fact that he's going to Florida State, and Florida State has been a wildly successful program in the recent past, whereas Miami is not. But yeah, there's just so much volume. It's just, everything is turned up about him. And even I've seen Florida State fans who are turning down the talk about Fitzpatrick and other guys who are on that roster at that position. So Fitzpatrick, we're going to turn that down. I forget the kid's name. He went to Coral Gables High School, plays running back for Florida State. He was going to go to Miami. He flipped when because he thought Al Golden was going to get fired. He's a kid.
Fitzpatrick?
No, not Fitzpatrick. There's another kid. Anyway, there's another kid on their roster. So they're going to turn that down. You got Zaquandre White, who's a 5-star running back, who Florida State signed this last class. Nobody's talking about him. You got, Kalon Laybourne from Virginia, another 4 or 5-star running back from last class, who Florida State signed, 3 in the same class. They turn all of that down, and they're taking all of this and putting it into Cam Akers. And it's gotten to the point where I've seen Florida State fans say even that Cam Akers right now, today, is better than Dalvin Cook. And I'm sorry. Dalvin Cook is the best running back who's ever played for Florida State. And I'm not going to go too much further about this because that's a team that I hate and, a rival. But just when you hear all those kind of things, at some point, somebody has to be kind of crazy, and I don't think it's me, where you're not talking about anybody else on the roster. You signed 3 4-star, 5-star guys in this class, but you're only talking about one of them. You signed a 4-star last class, the kid from Coral Gables, whose name I can't remember. You're not talking about him. You're not talking about Fitzpatrick. You're not talking about anybody but Cam Akers as being better than Dalvin Cook, who single-handedly won you games and is the best running back ever to go through Tallahassee. I mean, and play for, the Noles. Like, come on, bro. Like, that's just crazy. So getting back to the original point, having him as the 99th best college football player right now, and he doesn't even have that physicality. When Derrick Henry went to Alabama, that kid was 6'4", 245, running a 4.5 and running over and around people. But this kid is a running back-sized guy. He doesn't have elite size on any kind of thing. And they're talking about him like he's the next coming of Barry Sanders mixed with Herschel Walker. Like, that to me is just crazy. Sorry.
So you're talking about Amir Rasul.
Yes, that kid. So Amir Rasul, who was a championship sprinter, thank you for covering that gap for me. But Fitzpatrick, 4-star, been there for years. Amir Rasul, championship sprinter in high school from Coral Gables, was going to go to Miami, but didn't. And he goes up there and has blazing elite speed. But we're not talking about him or Zaquandre White or Kalon Laybourne or anybody else wearing garnet and gold. Well, except for Derwin James, who apparently can play every position on the field at the same time, like he's Bugs Bunny in a baseball cartoon. But the only thing you're talking about is Cam Akers. And I just think that it's premature. And I think that the volume of that conversation is really ridiculous. But that's me.
I'm no expert on Florida State football. I did watch the spring game, and I checked those guys out, not to evaluate play because we know what the spring game is, but I wanted to get familiar with the talent. I knew that they had tons of guys coming in trying to replace Dalvin Cook, and the way they were discussed and talked about. And then I did the back stories on their track record and the scouting reports. Yeah, I just think it's going to be a little bit more by committee, and Cam Akers isn't going to turn out to be some 1,500-yard back, I don't think, in year one. So, yeah, I think you hit it on the head all around, but especially when you said they're taking, a collection, and Cam Akers is embodying the entire Florida State running game is what they're doing there. I also like to break this down by numbers. So I was also thinking, well, you've got 68 teams in Power 5 football, including independents. You got about 30 guys per team that play on a regular basis, the starters, plus they got a few part-time starters. So that's like 2,000 football players, plus group of 5 would factor in there significantly. So let's say you got 2,500 players that play significantly for top-level programs. So the top 100 is very elite, and let's say the numbers just didn't break down. We don't know who 101 is on their list. It could have been the top 91 or the top 47. 100's just a round number. So maybe they would have Miami players packed between 100 and 150. Who knows? I'm defending Sports Illustrated just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's potentially possible. But, again, they chose the round number of the top 100 because it's a thing that people do with lists and things like that. So, just talking about what was presented. And you could be correct. Maybe that, the rest of the Hurricanes roster is somewhere in between, 101 and 150. But I guess we'll find out.
Cam Underwood, State of the U, joins us to break down the Canes as we head toward ACC Media Days a little bit later this month, and then right after that, of course, the start of fall camp. A number of freshmen will be taking part, of course. There's going to be guys that are going to be more project-oriented guys that we'll see either red-shirted or play on special teams, very limited impact. Other guys who will step in based on just circumstance, situation, or maybe just their sheer talent and ability and able to be grown men immediately out of high school. You would think that you would just take the commitment list, Cam, and say, oh, the 5 and 4 stars, okay, those guys are going to be automatic. They're going to start to play. They're going to be an impact. The guys at the bottom of the list, no. It's not necessarily the case. So can you kind of sort through a little bit, not just based on star rankings, but based on situation, who may make an impact immediately?
Yeah, that's a good question. Miami obviously looking to rebuild the talent on the roster and did a good job on National Signing Day 2017. Didn't get everybody we were after, but, have built a good collection of players coming in. So I'm going to discard from there, obviously, the JUCO transfers, Javonte Dean and the the FCS transfer, D. Delaney, who was first team All FCS, All American the last 2 years because they're not freshmen. So, but those guys are going to play, so they matter in this conversation. But yeah, obviously they're not freshmen, so we aren't going to really talk much about them. Looking at the 2017 signing class, I think there's almost 3 tiers of guys. So there's like your top contributors, almost starting kind of level guys, and then you have your contributors, just kind of those guys who might play a little bit in base situations on offense or defense, and then special teams, and then your guys who are going to be lightly used there, and then maybe into the red shirt kind of area. So at the top for the impact guys, I had to start at the top. Quarterback, changing his number from high school to college, following his mentor, Jameis Winston. That would be quarterback now number 5, Nkosi Perry. Yeah, the kid is good. And I've said it all along that I want him to be the quarterback for the Miami Hurricanes. I'm not sure that that's going to happen, but Mark Richt wanted Nkosi Perry as the centerpiece of this class last year, as his number 1 player on the board in all of America. And early reports are that Perry is really impressing everybody on campus in workouts. He has a cannon for an arm. He's very athletic, 6'4", up to probably about 185, almost 190 pounds. So he's still thin, but needs to add more weight. But very athletic, a huge arm, and has been doing well in the player-led workouts. And he's had the playbook since signing day. So, with talent, but not a starter returning at the quarterback position, it's wide open for Nkosi Perry to step in. Maybe not start from day 1, maybe not even start week 3 at Florida State, but I think sooner rather than later in this season, the job is going to be Nkosi Perry's job at quarterback as a true freshman coming out of Ocala Vanguard High School. So he's on campus as of summer A session, which was about a month ago. And yeah, so he broke all of Dante Culpepper's records at Ocala Vanguard. Dante Culpepper, UCF and NFL player at quarterback who, was NFL MVP and first team All-Pro and all things like that. Kinds of talent. And he would have shattered those records even further had the team not been so good this year that he rarely played in the second half of games because there was already a running clock. So the kid has a lot of talent. Very excited. Obviously, just like have spoken about in the past with other freshman recruits, both at Miami and elsewhere, he's not proven himself on the field of play at all at the collegiate level because he has not even been through a spring practice or anything of that nature. So there's still, much to be desired there to see on the production side, but on the potential side, to steal the saying from the good scholar Michael Jordan, the ceiling is the roof for Nkosi Perry. So yeah, he could just just as high as it could be. So that's a guy who I really look to come in and play. Also in a starting kind of a role between wide receivers Mike Harley, Jeff Thomas, and DJ Dallas. I think that 1 or 2 of those guys are going to be starting level players. DJ Dallas was an athlete out of Brunswick, Georgia. He settled at wide receiver through the spring, and they're going to try to leave him there. He does have the ability to play defensive back or running back, other things, because he played all over the field in high school, in addition to being a high school quarterback, but he moved to all those positions. So multifaceted skill set he has, but looks like he's going to stick at wide receiver, and they're going to hopefully be able to leave him there and develop him at one spot as opposed to, trying to move him around. So a master of one trade instead of a jack of many, as it were. But he is a very talented guy. Mike Harley and Jeff Thomas can flat fly. Jeff Thomas is a top 50 player in the 2017 recruiting class who had academic struggles throughout his high school career, got kicked off the team as a junior in high school, removed from an All-American game, earned his way back on, graduated, and is enrolled at the University of Miami. So people were talking about, maybe he won't make it in because of his academic struggles that one year when he's going through some personal things. He's on campus. So don't know what to tell you. So Miami got one of the fastest, most electric playmakers in America to come in. Also, Mike Harley from St. Thomas Aquinas. Jeff Thomas is from East St. Louis, Illinois. Very rough neighborhood, rough place. So he's coming over to Coral Gables. Mike Harley is from Fort Lauderdale, St. Thomas Aquinas, and he also can fly. There were some 7-on-7 coaches. Shout out to my man Sean Rose for South Florida Express, who were shaking the table last year about this time and saying, you give me any defensive back in America one-on-one with Mike Harley, and I guarantee you Mike Harley's going to light them on fire and flambe them because they can't cover him. And that just bore itself out to be true. So even at St. Thomas with, other 4- and 5-star recruits, Mike Harley's out there making plays. He goes to the U.S. Army All-American game, and he juked some guys literally out of their cleats, made them fall, and was uncoverable the entire time. So he's another guy like Jeff Thomas who's very fast and quick and able to make plays. So, between those 3 freshman receivers, I really expect probably 2 of those, maybe all 3, to step up into rotation, starting level guys. I don't know which is which. Just on speed alone, I would maybe say Thomas and Harley a little bit in front of Dallas, but Dallas was there because he's an early enrollee, so he's been through a spring already. So maybe he has the leg up. We'll see. Another guy up front on the offensive line, Navon Donaldson, big number 55, big Vaughn from Miami Central, 6'5", 370 pounds, give or take, 350-ish. I don't know, big dude, but he can play tackle or guard, but he's probably going to stick at a guard position, and they can have a veteran at tackle next to him to help that transition as a true freshman. But he's big, he's mean, and he's really, really, really good. And I think that automatically, by getting Navon Donaldson, increases the skill level on the offensive line, even as being a freshman. So I think that he's going to come in and play a lot. Also, on the defensive line, you have Jonathan Garvin, a 3-star recruit from Lake Worth, I want to say. And the kid, he was underrated as a recruit. And Jonathan Vilma did, the University of Miami, they had these great videos on signing day when they brought in former Canes greats to talk about the 2017 signing class. And John Vilma came in to talk about Jonathan Garvin. And I've said this on here before, but he just was flabbergasted. He said, man, this kid is so quick. You take 2 steps and he's already around the corner off the snap. And, the high school tackles are barely able to get a hand on him. And obviously, the level of competition increases when you come up to the collegiate level, but he's an early enrollee as well and went through the spring and, was looking at making plays, and he was, routinely having his name called saying, he didn't do everything perfect today, but John Garvin flashed a couple times. And that's a kid who, even in the Miami defensive line rotation, which is one of the best in America, this is a top 5 defensive line, probably top 3, he could find his way into playing time. And if you really, it's really interesting to me because even if he's not a starting caliber guy, where he's not in the 2 deep, but he's still getting rotation snaps, if you tell John Garvin you have one job and that one job is to get the quarterback, he could be really good. He could have 6, 7 sacks just as a pass rushing specialist as a freshman, because you have other guys in front of him that have the rounded out game where they're going to be doing, twists and stunts and, running, run defense and, goal line and all these other kinds of things on the defensive line where you just say, hey, 97, go. That could be a really advantageous situation for him. So I think that he's a guy who's really going to go. So those guys, I think, are the impact kind of guys. There are some other guys who could play kind of rotational snaps. You look at Trajan Bandy from Miami Columbus High School, everybody's favorite recruit, or one of the favorite recruits in the last class. Again, close to the Sean Taylor family, owns the Taylor game-worn Rose Bowl jersey and the red flare visor. I had to say that every time just so you remember. But he's a shorter defensive back at about 5'9.5", so he can play some nickel and then some special teams because he's fast. Likewise, Amari Carter from Palm Beach Gardens. He's big and fast and physical at safety. I think he's going to be in the 2 deep and then definitely on special teams. And then also Zach Fiegels from New Jersey. He's moving in actually this current weekend ahead of the Summer B session. The son of Jeff Fiegels, who was a Miami alum and a 22-year punter in the NFL. Miami doesn't have a punter currently, or the starting punter last year graduated. So that job is wide open, and there's been some whispers that people are expecting Zach Fiegels to come in as a true freshman and win that job. So obviously it would be less snaps than, say, maybe a Nkosi Perry or a Jeff Thomas, but very important because, special teams is something that really matters, throughout the course because of the game of the season is that third phase, offense, defense, special teams. There's a lot of other talented guys in this class, apart from the guys I've named. DJ Johnson from Sacramento had the most scholarship offers out of anybody in the last recruiting class. He had 100 scholarship offers, but decided to come to Miami. He's a Summer B enrollee, so he's coming in now, 6'5", 240. Could be strong side defensive end, could add weight and be a really athletic defensive tackle. So he has a multifaceted skill set. So we'll see how quickly he develops and gets game ready. Jonathan Ford from Fort Lauderdale Dillard High School. He's a big kid. He was 6'5", 280 in high school. I thought I saw somewhere on Twitter that he grew to like 6'6" and almost 300 pounds at defensive tackle, which will work for me. So we'll see again. Defensive tackle is a loaded position, so I don't know how quickly he'll be able to get into the rotation just because there's so many guys in front of him with talent and experience. DeAndre Wilder from Miami Carroll City is a year old for his grade level, so he's already 20 years old, almost 2 years old for grade level, but he's a freshman, and he's 6'2", almost 200 pounds at a linebacker. He's quick and he's mean. I can see him playing on special teams, definitely, and being a terror this year, and then, moving forward as you go down the line. We had 3 linebacker signees, and it's tough for those kids because they're coming in on the backs of the amazing All-American freshman linebackers that we signed in 2016. So I don't think they're really going to play much, but maybe some rotational snaps or special teams. And the last guy I'm going to end with here is Robert Burns out of Miami Gulliver Prep. And that's the school that, Joe Jackson, the defensive end, went to. Deontay Mullins, the wide receiver, went to. The late, great Sean Taylor went to Gulliver Prep as well. Many other Hurricanes went to that school. And Burns has all the physicality that you want in a running back. He's 5'11", he's 220 pounds, he's chiseled. 3 years ago at a Nike training camp down at the American Heritage School that I attended, Robert Burns had the highest Spark athleticism rating score in the history of Spark rating scores to that point in time, and that was after his freshman year of high school. And that was about as good as it got for him because he's just been injured ever since, basically. He played about half the season his sophomore year, or he played almost a full season his sophomore year. Junior and senior year, he played very sparingly. As a senior, he had 9 carries for 53 yards and 1 kickoff return for 95 yards for a touchdown. But that was it. So you had 10 plays where he generated stats as a senior, and for a guy who was committed to Miami for 2 years and who was, has flashed this elite kind of talent, the injury concerns are really, really, really daunting when it comes to considering Robert Burns. And I think that as far as his body will let him go is as far as he will go as a Hurricane. If he stays healthy, then he has this combination of size and speed that we haven't seen since, maybe, I don't even want to say a Hurricane's great name because then everybody's just going to hop in the comments below and just say, well, you compare Robert Burns to insert player here. But, he's a rare athletic talent with, just his physical bulk, size, and speed. It's not bad weight. It's not like he went to Krispy Kreme or Five Guys and just had a bunch of donuts and hamburgers. He's chunky like I am. Like, this kid is cut, man. So it really just comes down to the fact of if he can stay on the field or not. And, over the course of the last 2 seasons, that was not the case. In spring football, he missed the majority of time because he had a shoulder injury in the spring. And, there was some back and forth on, is he hurt? Is he not? Is he hurt? Is he not? And he was hurt and he was not out there. And that's confirmed by pretty much every journalist who was there at spring practice. So, immediately right away, you figure, okay, he graduated early, so he got in there for spring. And he rested throughout the majority of his football season as a senior. And other recruiting writers that I know from a lot of different websites, and I would talk to them and, DM them and things like that. And they're like, yo, I drove so far to go see Gulliver Prep played in the Orlando area or the Tampa area. And I live an hour and a half from Tampa. So, this, not me, but this writer that I'm, talking about, then the writer would drive 90 minutes and then be like, yo, Robert Burns is on the sideline in street clothes. What's going on? I don't know. But the kid was injured that much, and you figure, okay, he was injured and missed damn near all of his senior year, and comes into Miami. He should be fresh. He should be, working out, getting healthy, everything. Going to go through spring, going to develop, boom, 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 and then 2 or 3 practices in the spring, bomb, shoulder, done. Wow, that's challenging. And when you consider that Miami is very, very is thinner than paper thin at running back with Mark Walton, Trayon Gray, Travis Homer, and the aforementioned Robert Burns. It's really Walton at 1, Homer at 2, and then we're praying that Gray and Burns stay healthy. So, that's just a big question mark. And, there are snaps to be had as the third running back on this team, when we could use somebody that comes in. And it would be great if it were Robert Burns, and then we could, spin that forward for the next 3 or 4 years of having him here and developing him in the system. But, yeah, that's the biggest question mark. And I think that's the thing that's really standing between me saying he's going to be a contributing player and not, and the health of his body. And we really just need to see that be consistent for him to really get on the field.
Cam, I don't know if this theory holds up medically, but about every generation you hear this, pick your sport, that there's a guy that is just so freakishly athletic that his muscle twitch, his burst, his explosion is almost just too much for his anatomy, and he gets hurt all the time. You hear that about certain guys.
Yeah. I mean, and you see it all over the place. You got guys in football. I'm a Detroit Tigers fan, and I remember back in the 90s, Justin Thompson was a left-handed pitcher, and he had one of the best arms that I've ever seen anybody have. I mean, just it was an amazing arm, but he had shoulder injuries all the time, shoulder and elbow, and he just could never stay healthy. But when he was out there, he's throwing 97 with movement and a curveball and a changeup and locating his pitches and just tap, 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 tap. And then, 6 starts later, boom, elbow tendonitis, and then, a torn labrum, and then he's out for 18 months. And yeah, maybe he was just too physically advanced in that one area for the rest of his body, or for the, implementation of that physicality for his sport. And maybe that's Robert Burns. And I hope not, because, I've seen this kid, and I saw that spark, that athleticism training or testing he was doing that day years ago at American Heritage. And man, if he could put it all together and keep it together on the field, I mean, I'm not going to say the sky is the limit, but I mean, he could be a very, 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 very good player for Miami. I hope that, maybe he's not that player this generation in the sport of football where his body just won't let him be great at this sport. But to this point, or in the recent history of his career, that's been the case. So hopefully he's able to turn it around now.
All right, Cam Underwood joining us on a regular basis here at Mark Rogers TV. Cam from the State of the U, of course, doing a great job getting everybody all set for Miami football with ACC Media Days coming up and summer camp as well. All right. We talked to Robert Burns just a few minutes ago concerning his injury issues and his eye-popping measurements and evaluations and grades. Well, some of the best high school football players in the nation have descended on Beaverton, Oregon. Why Beaverton, Oregon? I have no idea, but it's for Nike's what they call the opening. And I know, Cam, you've been tracking that and the U's connection.
Yeah. It's in Beaverton, Oregon, the opening, which is Nike's premier recruiting event, because that's where Nike World Headquarters is. So instead of having a satellite camp, you bring the satellite camp to you.
What do I know?
I get it, and I questioned, the idea of having it there. But, the kids get to go through a tour, and they get to go to the factory store and see things like that. So that's why the opening is in Beaverton, Oregon. So there's the opening regionals that move around the country in the springtime, and that's where kids go for their athleticism testing, 1-on-1, 7-on-7, things like that. That's where Robert Burns was a couple of years ago that I saw that Spark testing. They've discontinued calling it Spark. They call it something else now. But yeah, so there's a lot of Miami Hurricanes commits that are there in Beaverton for the opening. There are 10 commits actually there in Beaverton, which is the most commits of any team currently that are attending the opening. So that's pretty awesome, where, there are 17 kids right now committed in the class, and 10 of them are at the premier recruiting event in America, which is pretty awesome. So just running down the list of those 10, you have running backs Lorenzo Lingard and Cameron Davis. You have wide receivers Mark Pope and Brian Hightower. Tight ends Brevin Jordan, and Will Mallory. Offensive lineman Delon Scaife. Defensive lineman Nesta Silvera, and defensive backs Josh Jobe and Al Blades Jr. If you think that the name is familiar, it is because his dad was Al Blades, who went to and played at the U. And his uncles, Brian Blades and Benny Blades, also went to the U and had NFL careers. And yeah, so he committed, Blades Jr., that is, he committed to Miami on Father's Day in memory of his late father, which was a nice gesture. So those 10 guys are in Beaverton right now, and with 156 other top recruits from around the country. And yeah, they're going through one-on-ones. They're going through 7-on-7, which is starting today and ends tomorrow. I want to say the 7-on-7 tournament. And just all kinds of things. There's one-on-ones for defensive line and offensive line. So yeah, they're going through a bunch of different coaching drills and position drills and one-on-ones and things like that to develop their skill and show their talents. The cool thing for Miami is all 10 of those guys that I just named are on the same team for 7-on-7. So Miami, they're able to, those commits should be able to do a lot of recruiting out there because A, there's a million of them, and B, they're all together. So it's not like, okay, 2 are on this team, 2 are on that team. Nah, this is the Miami team basically, and then everybody else. So, on that team also is Kevin Austin, from North Broward Prep, who's a wide receiver target for the Hurricanes. He's one of my personal favorite wide receivers in this class. I've seen him. He's big, he's fast, he's strong. He plays for a lower tier kind of high school team in South Florida, but he's very, very good. So maybe they're working on, getting Kevin Austin. Other guys who are out there would be, Pat Surtain Jr., son of Pat Surtain, the former Miami Dolphin cornerback who goes to American Heritage, who's probably going to go to LSU, but we'll see. Tyson Campbell, who's Surtain's teammate at cornerback at Heritage, might be a better prospect down the line than Surtain, which is saying something because Surtain's like a top 10 player in this class. But Campbell is 6'3". He has state champion sprinter in the 100 and 200 this season in Florida, which is, elite speed if ever I saw it. And then a couple other guys like Xavier Williams is on a different team. He's an Alabama commit, but he goes to Chaminade High School, which is around the corner from where I live. And I've seen many people say that he's not going to go to sign with Alabama for whatever reason. And I mean, hey, if he doesn't want to go to Alabama and wants to stay home, then, put on for your city. I'm good with it. But, there's all kinds of guys who are out there at the opening. And from all accounts, all of the Miami commits who are there are doing well. I look on the timeline on Twitter and I see, Mark Pope doing Mark Pope things, which is getting open and getting touchdowns. Brevin Jordan, on the very first play of 7-on-7 competition, scored on a seam route, which is kind of crazy because you're, shorts and t-shirt and, you hit a tight end and he runs away from the defensive backs on the other team and scores from 60 yards away, which is pretty good in case you're wondering. Brian Hightower's making plays. Cam Davis was getting rave reviews for his ability. First of all, his build. Second of all, his quickness. Third of all, his ability to catch the ball in the backfield, which is awesome. Lorenzo Lingard, the only 5-star recruit or rated recruit right now in this class, just continues to do 5-star things, and he's just dominating. Vera was dominating on one-on-ones with O-line, D-line. Delon Scaife was dominating his matchups on O-line, D-line, one-on-ones. Unfortunately, at the end of one of the reps, the D-lineman he was going against on a rolled ankle or something, it looked from the reports on Twitter, I saw that it might have been a serious injury to that young gentleman. So, obviously wish him the best. And I don't think it was a dirty play by any means, and I don't think anybody said that. But, just kind of things. It's still football. And the O-line, D-line one-on-ones that they're doing today, they're padded. So, they're wearing, all pads and everything. So sometimes when you put pads on, those things happen, unfortunately. But, 10 commits out there. They're doing really well. The first game of 7-on-7 that I saw, I think they won 29-16. Did I mention Josh Jobe yet? I don't know if I did. No, I didn't mention Josh Jobe. Well, I mentioned him in the list, but I haven't said, how he's been doing. But he's been doing really well. He's, physically advanced because he's already 19 years old. And, he's just doing really well in coverage and performance during the 7-on-7 part of the tournament and also the one-on-ones. Al Blaze Jr. has been beasting in the one-on-ones. He was one of the only people to be able to cover 5-star wide receiver Terrace Marshall from Louisiana during one-on-ones. He also shut down a couple other guys who were just, getting open at will against other guys. And they couldn't get open against Al Blades. He wasn't perfect. He did, obviously you're going to lose a couple reps because, that's just the nature of the game. But, he's showing really, really, really well. Even better than I thought because I've written even in his commitment piece that I think that eventually Al Blades Jr. is going to be more of a safety like his dad and uncle than a cornerback, which is what he plays now. But, hey, if he's playing like this at the opening against 4-star, 5-star elite level guys and can keep that up, and stay at cornerback, I'm good with it. So yeah, but yeah, there's 10 guys, like I said, out there who are committed to the Hurricanes. There's a couple other targets. Let me see, a couple other guys I want to name. Dennis Briggs is from Kissimmee. He's a defensive tackle and seems to be down to Miami and Florida, I think. But he's Miami's #1 target at defensive tackle to go with Nesta Silvera. David Reese is a linebacker out there. Daniel Falele, the massive Australian, 6'9", 400 pounds, who goes to IMG Academy. Really still learning the game because he's never played a season of football. He's played one game, which is IMG's spring game. But when you're 6'9", 400 pounds and move like he moves, there's people who are going to take a flyer on you as, you know, a developmental guy with potential. So we'll see how he does at IMG this year, and that's playing with Brian Hightower, that's playing with Miami's quarterback commit Arthur Sikowski, who did not get invited to the Elite 11 or the opening, which is mind-boggling to me, especially since I saw him dealing when he was at the Miami Regional for the opening. Hey, but, you know, Falele's going to be there with those guys. So, you know, there's a wealth of talent out there at the opening. You know, you get those guys get their Nike swag. You know, they get to get out there and everything. But, yeah, you know, those guys are really, really just balling. I see, you know, every time I look on Twitter, Mark Pope has another highlight of him getting open and scoring a touchdown. Or, you know, Brevin Jordan is running away from somebody, or Will Mallory, the other tight end commits, jumping over somebody, or, you know, Al Blades is locking down somebody on defense. So there's a lot of talent out there, a lot of talent to be excited about. And, you know, the 2018 recruiting class for Miami is elite. Depending on who you talk to, it's either first or second nationally. Hopefully, you know, there's more spots in this class still where we can add some top talent. Maybe even we go out of state and get a Micah Parsons, 5-star defensive end from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Maybe, you know, you get Tyson Campbell from American Heritage. Maybe you get some of these other guys and round out this group and really bring in a group of ballers. So next year, excuse me, at this time when we're talking about impact freshmen versus project freshmen, it's just a list of the recruiting class for the impact guys. And that's a good thing that you want to have talent coming to your team, because even with great players, you never want them to get complacent. You don't want to have Amon Richards just say, look, there's nobody who's on my level on this roster, and there's not. And so he takes it easy. You always want to be bringing in the best guys behind them to push them, so you got guys who are hungry. And that's how the Miami Hurricanes got great back in the day. It wasn't just that we had James Jackson, running back. So we had a James Jackson and brought in a Clinton Portis, and also brought in a Najee Davenport, and also had a Willis McGahee, and also behind him brought in a Frank Gore, and hopefully, you know, this is what we're going to be able to get back to in recruiting. So, you know, the opening is a great place to start with that. It's a really great showcase for the Miami Hurricanes recruiting class. Hopefully these guys stick together and we keep balling.
Cam Underwood from State of the U is our man for Miami football. And, of course, this is the dead period of the college football calendar between the end of spring practice, getting us set for the various media days, and then into summer camp. And I'm always intrigued by some of the articles that are out there, because the writers have to get a little bit more creative. And one of those staples seemed to be the countdown to the opener. So we're at 62 days as we sit here on a Sunday afternoon to Miami's opener the first week of September. So number 62, I believe, was applied by you, Cam, in designating, okay, it's 62 days. So who wore the jersey 62, and who am I going to select to be that guy to represent the U on State of the U? So who do we have today?
Yeah, no, we're doing that every day. I think it goes up at about 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. Just counting down guys who wore the various jersey numbers, and we've been doing that ever since 99 days to go to a kickoff, which was May the 26th is when I wrote the first article for that series. So we've been counting down every day. Go on stateoftheu.com and you can check that out. I have a nice story stream right on the front page, and I think we're over 100 articles counting down towards this season already. So there's plenty of content on a variety of things, but yeah, today we had Tony Fitzpatrick, who was on the '83 national championship team. He was offensive lineman. Also Richard Mercier, who was there in the 90s, the late 90s, and started 48 games. Also Chris Harvey, who was there from 99 to 2002. And he actually was an offensive lineman as well. And he was an education major like myself. And we had classes together. I think we had like 3 or 4 education classes together, Chris Harvey and I did. things like that. He was a good guy. Never had a project with him or anything, but always did well when, we talked about or had class discussions, things like that. So just, again, giving you a little tidbit that you're not going to get anywhere else because I was the only one who was there in those classes with him. I have a really great Najee Davenport class story that I'm not sure I can tell, but I had a class with him I had a class with Najee Davenport as well, but we'll leave it there. The current number 62 is Hayden Mahoney. He was a redshirt guy in the 2015 class. He's maybe going to be a two-deep rotational guy this year on the offensive line. And, we'll see going forward. But, yeah, every day we're having our number countdowns. You can go back and see, maybe your favorite player from a different number because we've done every number from 99 up through 62 already. I have 61 already written, and I've actually written some of the other ones that I'm writing. But, we have a staff of contributors, and they're all chipping in with a couple different days and things like that. But, we have early game previews already. We're starting our position previews already, starting our player previews already and things like that. And I'm going to give you, some Miami flavor and some, fan-sided, really, kind of whimsical stuff as well. So there's a variety of things that we're doing, to bide your time in the summer. But, State of the U is where you need to be for your Miami Hurricanes needs. So we're grinding along with you, and hopefully you're there for the ride. And be sure that you stick around because once the season gets there and the Miami Hurricanes start winning football games, you're definitely going to want to see what we have. And if you stick around now, you'll be more prepared to talk about that intelligently because we have X's and O's previews every week on Thursdays about certain games. So you've probably missed 4 or 5 of those as ready. But if you want to talk intelligently about the Toledo game or this other game, and, from an X's and O's standpoint, look at what our guy, Justin DeTavio, Ironman Football, he's written up there. We have some really great stuff. So that's my, 45-second commercial for State of the U. But you're already watching this video. Hopefully you're on the website. But if you're not on the website and watching this video, go ahead and give it a click and see if you don't like something.
I love the countdown idea. And this is something that most sites do, but I love the idea. And I especially love about the last week to 10 days because I never think any of us give enough love to the offensive linemen. And the 60s is almost exclusively offensive linemen. You get into the 70s, you've got some defensive linemen, the 50s, some linebackers, but the 60s are pretty much the offensive linemen. So they have to get some attention. So I like that.
Yeah, we're, like I said, doing every single number from 99 down to 1. There's some numbers that are, maybe more revered than others. 99, I got to write about Joe Jackson and Winston Moss, which is cool for me. For 75, obviously, we had our one of our guys write about Vince Wilfork. That was a fun day. So you have some of those things. 64, that was a rough day because, you got to maybe do a little research in the offensive line time. But, I have my calendar here. I'm not going to show you guys the calendar, but I guarantee you it's on the other side of this clipboard. So, I have a bunch of stuff going on and, other numbers that we're going to get to. So, just be sure that you check it out and hop in the comments. Some days we hit all 12 guys who wore a certain number. Other days we only hit 1 or 2 guys, and then you hop in the comments and say, yo, but I remember, Bob Jones, and he was this, and I remember Deontay Jackson, and he was that, and whatever. And it's just great conversation. So, yeah, we try to, have not done the countdown thing in my 4 years with State of the U, so it's the first time doing this that I've been a part of writing. And yeah, it's, interesting and engaging. And every time that I look up a new number, like today I wrote about one of the retired numbers that's upcoming next month or this month, and I didn't know anything about these guys. So I sat there and I read some stuff to learn something else about Miami Hurricanes history. So, I got that, and I know that our other writers get that, and we hopefully, want to share that with you guys as well because, there's some people from every generation of Miami Hurricanes fandom, but no matter where in that fandom you sit, we want to connect with you. So, yeah, just check out our countdown and our other stuff on stateoftheu.com and, just stick around through the season because we have some great stuff lined up for you.
All right. Always awesome stuff from Kim Underwood, State of the U. You can join him as well on Twitter at Underwood Sports. And maybe between now and the next time, Cam, we track you down, you can figure out how to cajole, manipulate, clean up the Najee Davenport story so you can tell it to us.
See, and
whatever you need to do.
The thing about it is, it's not a dirty story per se. I'm just not sure that it's fit for public consumption, but I will let your imaginations run wild as to what this story between me and Najee Davenport is a fifth-year senior, and me as a true freshman in 2000. What class could we have had, and what is the story that we could have had from that class? I will tell you next time what class it was, and maybe, just maybe, tell you the story, but you're going to have to check it out.
We'll leave it right at that. That's cool. All right, man.
You're still live.